there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, we're going to be making a FID. Now some of you might be saying at this point in time, what the heck is a FID? And there seems to be a trend that's going on, and I'll be honest, I've jumped on the bandwagon and been having some fun with it. And what that trend is working with paracord and tying knots with this sort of thing. And you know, you make little keychains and bracelets and that sort of thing. And you know, it's a lot of fun. So I thought I would do a few shows featuring a few of the paracord items that you use and how you can make your own and how you can do some of these knots and try it out for yourself. Now, one of the things that you use when making knots and using the paracord is called a FID, or a lacing needle. And basically it's a shaft that attaches to your paracord, and you can lace it through your knots and makes it a lot easier to weave your rope in through each other to get the knots that you need. So let's head over to the bench and I'll talk about the supplies that we're going to need to make one of these. Now the supplies that we need for this project could not be simpler. What you need is one of these packages, and I got it at a big box store here in the city, and I'll just pan away from me and give you a close-up of the package. And basically what it is, they're made by a company called Hillman. I found it in the specialty fasteners in one of the big box stores, and they're listed under binding posts. But what this is a threaded aluminum post. And I'll just open this package up here and show you what we've got inside. And basically it's a 2-inch aluminum post. It's got a head on the one end, it's threaded on the other, and it comes with this little screw that goes in the other end. Now these binding posts, I guess you could, well, they have their purpose. Anyway, I'm not going to get into it, but this is what we're going to use in order to make our FID, which would be usable for 550 paracord. Now 550 is the size of the paracord. So the first thing you want to do is start off with this binding post, 2-inch long, and take this cap out of here, or this screw, and get rid of it because we don't need it. And now we want to spin some tape around this just to protect it. Now for my purposes, I'm going to be using a little bit of painter's tape. You could use whatever type of tape you have lying around your shop. If it's Scotch tape or masking tape, or whether it's electrical tape, it really doesn't matter. The purpose of the tape is that we're going to be chucking this up. I haven't decided how just yet, but we're going to chuck this up into a drill press chuck. And this is just to keep it from damaging this post, as this post is really, it's only aluminum. So we don't want this to be crushed or damaged. The next step that we want to do is you want to get out a Dremel tool, or if you don't have one of those, you could use a hacksaw or a coping saw with a metal cutting blade, even a scroll saw with a fine tooth blade. And we want to cut this head off of our pin, or off of our binding post. So I'm going to use the Dremel tool because that's what I feel like using right now. I'm going to put a metal cutting disc in there, and we're going to very carefully just cut off this end cap, or the head of this binding post. And here we have our Dremel with our metal cutting disc, and you just want to be careful with it, and we're just going to remove this head. And there we have the head removed, and truth be told, I stopped using the Dremel. I don't like the way that felt. I don't like the way it was reacting. You can't really clamp this in a vise because it's so soft that you'll just destroy it. So there was really no good way to grip it, and I ended up cutting the head off using a number 2 blade in a scroll saw, and that worked much better. Just show you a little clip of that here. There it is. Much safer operation. Don't like the Dremel option there at all. So rule number one in the shop, guys, if it doesn't feel good, don't do it. It's as simple as that. Figure out a different way that's safer and that you feel comfortable with. So now that we've got this done, I'm actually going to take this over to the lathe. Well, we're here at the lathe. We've got a drill chuck installed, and we've got our binding post here with the painter's tape on it, and we're just going to place this inside our chuck. Now, you don't want to crank down on it. Just enough, a little light pressure just to hold it in place. Want to turn the speed of your lathe down, keep it nice and low, and all we're going to do is use a file, and we're going to shape the end of this into a point. Now, it's not a weapon, it's not a dagger. You don't need this super crazy sharp point. You want it sharp enough so that you can weave it in between ropes that are tighter fit together, but you also want it loose enough, or sorry, dull or blunt enough that it's not going to pierce the fibers of your paracord. Now, it is aluminum, it will file rather quickly, so just keep checking it using your tool rest as support. Now, just be careful that you're not filing your tool rest. If you wanted to put a little bit of painter's tape on your tool rest to protect that as well, that would be probably not a bad idea. Just be careful, pay attention to what you're doing, have your safety gear on, and work this into a point. And I'm going to finish that up, and then I'll come back and take it to the next step of this little project. Well, the point of our FID is done, and I'll just show you a picture of it here, what it looks like. However, there is some marking and some burring that's going on the aluminum. And the important part here of a FID is that it's going to be going in between paracord, and any of those sharp edges are going to tear apart your paracord. So what you want to do now is get some sandpaper and sand this down through the grits until it's a nice polished surface. You can go as high of a grit as you want. I will probably go as high as 600 on mine and then call it quits at that, depending on the finish that I get. So get yourself some sandpaper and start sanding this thing to bring down those burrs and the marks. And now we've done with the sanding. I've actually taken it to 600 grit. As I said, I tried to go a little higher and it wasn't really producing any better results. So why bother wasting the time? The important part here is that there's no burrs on it to catch the fibers of your paracord. So as long as you've achieved that, you've done okay. So I'm just going to remove this painter's tape now and show you roughly what we have here as far as the almost finished product. And it's really not rocket science here. It's just a little pin with a sharpened tip. I'm going to take it one step further here, and I'm going to get some metal polishing compound and just polish this up a bit, which will give it a nice coating, and it will also take out, because it does have grit in it, it will take out any extra burrs that may have been created along the way. And then once I'm done with that, I'll come back and I'll show you how to use this little device. And with a little bit of polishing, with what I use is this Acutabove metal polish. With a little bit of polishing, you can get a really nice finish on it. Now, it's nice and shiny, it's nice and smooth, and the Acutabove puts a protective coating on it as well, which should keep it from tarnishing too quickly on you. Now, in order to use this, it's not really that difficult. It's a pretty simple thing that, a pretty simple thing to use. And with your 550 paracord, all you'd want to do is on the end, you trim it so that it's on an angle, and then melt the end as you would normally when working with paracord, and then kind of mush it down so it's kind of a little point. And all you do is you just put it in the threaded end and you thread your paracord into your FID. And just like that, you've got a needle on the end of it now to be able to weave through in between your projects. And if you were working on a piece and you had several, let me just pull some of this off here, wrap it around my fingers, and you need it to get for a knot in between these here, just pushing the paracord itself would be a nightmare. But with the FID, you're able to weave it in between just like that and pull it through with no issues. And that is the whole purpose of the threading needle or the FID for when you're working with paracord. And there you have it. A FID or threading needle for working with paracord. Guys, I know this isn't my typical woodworking project, and that's okay because it's my show. I can put whatever I like on it. It is a fun thing to do, paracord and working with it, and anything to be creative and make something a little different, that people look at that and say, wow, that's really cool, you know, look what that guy did, or look how talented they are. Branch out a little bit. We're not wood snobs here. We work with all different medium, so whether it be metal, whether it be wood, regardless of what it is, have some fun with it. And if paracord and working with that sort of thing interests you, then this might be right up your alley. Maybe you're somebody new that was searching for how to make one of these and you happen to stumble on my show. Well, welcome aboard. Glad to have you. Guys, give it a try. Don't think, what the heck is this? Give it a try. See what you think of it and see how much you like it. And there will be a couple more videos on paracord work, and then we'll get back to our usual woodworking, but nothing wrong with branching out and having a little bit of fun with something other than making sawdust. Guys, I want to thank you for joining me again this week, and I'm hoping you're going to join me again next week with yet another woodworking, or maybe not. Join me for another video. I'll see you next week.